Hello and welcome to what Seriously Simple Marketing is calling Digital Marketing This Week. This is being recorded June 14th, 2014. And for those of you who are joining us live, feel free to jump in the chat room if you want. Introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, and of course, if you can hear the power of my voice. Let's go ahead and jump into it from here on out. So let me go ahead and get into some of the details of how this works, especially if you are new to this particular show. The first part of the show, we're going to cover news, trends, and tips that are all about internet marketing, digital marketing, online marketing, anything that we believe can help build somebody's business. And we'll cover a bunch of different ones, anything from beginners to intermediate, and occasionally something a little bit more advanced, depending upon the skill level that people are looking for. Now, let's talk about the links. We're going to give you links, and we will see those in the chat room if you're joining us live. And if you're watching this on a replay, you're going to see this in the show notes. We'll have links to all of these different articles and the references, essentially, that we're getting all of these stories from. Some of these links will be affiliate links, and that's important just for, we want to be fully disclosed. Some of them will be affiliate links. Obviously, we're marketers as well. It helps us to support the show. So if we talk about a particular product and we can get an affiliate link for it, we will be putting that in there. So just want to let you know that. And then the second part is more of an extended portion of the show. So if you are a member of our notification list, where you actually sign up live for these webinars, and you can either sign up for a replay or sign up to be notified of when the webinar is and actually register and join us live, that's where you can actually get some pretty powerful advice in forms of questions and answers. So you can do that either live if you want, or you can do by signing up for a replay, and there's a little survey that will give you where you can enter any questions that you have. That way, if you can't join us live, at least you can still get some of that feedback. And again, it is an extended portion of the show. It's a service that we provide to those on our notification list. And if you need to join that list, you can go to seriouslysimplemarketing.com, and you'll see a place to sign up for that. And if you are ready and you're watching this live and you want to go ahead and ask a question, now's the time to visit this URL, which is ssmtips/question. That's going to take you to a form that's going to look something like this, and that's basically going to say, hey, what's your name? Again, not required, but if you want us to address you, you can put your name in there. The big box is all about the question itself, so make sure you put the question in there in as much detail as you can. And then if it is about your website, make sure you put that in there, the URL, and if we have permission or not to show it, because that way, obviously, if it's something that we need to look at or maybe we can use as a case study for others, we will definitely want to do that. And then I'm, at this point, going to go ahead and put in the SSM Tips question in the chat room as well, so that everybody can join that. Now let's go ahead on with the meat. This is going to be talking about Google in particular. So we're going to start with Google. What's going on in the wonderful world of Google? Well, the big thing that recently came out was Google Pages. So what they're calling My Business. So last week, or actually, yeah, last week's episode, we talked about Facebook and how they're making changes to their pages, and it was mostly about customization. This one is actually kind of where Google's going through and they're combining all these different aspects of Google and allowing you to control them in one spot. So if you, this is the URL, google.com/mybusiness. And I'll go ahead and put that into the chat room as well so that you guys have that. And again, if you're watching this on a replay, just check the show notes. So let's see here. Okay, there you go. And so what we're going to do is go through this particular section, this particular page format, section by section, so you can see it in a little more detail. The first part of this is where you can edit everything about your business that Google knows or needs to know. And this is important for two reasons. And this is why you would want to set this up, because I know some of you are thinking, oh, why do I want to go through Google Plus? Because it's just sort of a hassle. This is actually very, very easy to set up. Once you sign in, and through this My Business section, it automatically sort of just imports everything and creates it for you. But you can, the important part is making sure that Google's accurate on what they're telling people, because if they don't have a phone number, they don't have the right address. I mean, stuff like that happens, especially if you've had third-party vendors maybe set up your information and it came out wrong for whatever reason. So go through here, you can see this sort of top part where it's got, how many followers the page has, which again, kind of a Google Plus metric, but phone number, address, website, very important stuff, because that's what Google's going to know as far as where you are when it comes to Google Places. And if you're a local vendor, where if you got a brick and mortar location, this is super important. So you want to make sure that you have this section filled out completely. The next part of the page, it gets again into some Google Plus features, but this is where you can actually share information through Google Plus. And just as a side note, if you are not doing that, you are absolutely missing out on telling Google more about your website. And if you choose to do that, it's going to ultimately hurt you, because Google right now, Google is the big boy on the block. They probably will be for quite some time. And if you have an opportunity to let Google know about the content that you have, you should. Because if you're just relying on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn to put your data out there, because that happens to be where your markets are, that's great, and you need to do that. But if Google isn't scraping those, and it's not really scraping those sites, so if it's not scraping those sites, it needs to find out about the information somehow. And so put it in Google+. Like, so what if nobody really comes from Google+, you don't have a whole lot of activity there? The point is not necessarily to engage with everybody on Google+, though if you happen to have more of a technical audience, you probably will find some engagement there. But the goal is to let Google know about what's happening on your site and give it more SEO content and juice. And that's what this is all about. So this makes it really easy to do that, because you got one spot to go. You go to My Business, dump your information in there, put a photo, link, whatever it is, and you can share away. Underneath that, you'll see the Insights section, and that's really just a summary of how many people are liking your stuff and viewing your stuff on Google+. And then the other, which I think is the second most important part, that first important part is making sure Google has all of your business information. The second most important part is the review section here. So you can, just like Yelp, you can go to Google and users review. And Google's getting really much better at getting Google reviews, because obviously everything's going mobile, everything's connected to a Google account if you have an Android device, and there's a lot more Android devices every single day that's going out there, so they're getting more and more used to getting reviews, right? So you've got to make sure that you're managing those reviews. This is a place where you can pull it all together and make sure that people are saying nice things, and if they're not, ways to address them. And then of course underneath, these things sort of rotate. Right now this particular screenshot shows AdWords and Google Analytics, but those will rotate out based upon whatever services you're using from Google, because they're, they're marketers too. They want to make sure you're using everything Google. So overall, again, that's the page as it looks kind of from the start. So google.com/mybusiness. Next, let's talk about some Facebook information. Facebook, what are they up to now? What they're up to now is more customization. And what they're allowing is users to customize the ad experience a whole lot more, because obviously they want to make sure that they keep their users happy, right? So they want those of us on Facebook basically not getting irritated with all the ads that are coming out, especially ads that aren't relevant, just because somebody wanted to pay for the ad to show up in my newsfeed. If it's not relevant, if it's for women's shoes, I don't care. So no matter how much money they're going to pay, and yes, Facebook can make a dime or two showing me that ad, but if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to quickly sort of go, well, Facebook is just sort of annoying, right? So what they're allowing people to do is basically customize that ad experience. What that means is you can click on an ad, and you can see a screenshot here of how it would work on mobile. You can go through the ad, and you can basically say, okay, I don't want to see this ad, or, very important, I don't want to see any ads from this company ever. And of course, was it useful? Like, yeah, I kind of like this ad. So I don't know that many people would do that, but let's say they do. But the first two are interesting. So the first one, I don't want to see this, and then the second one, I never want to see ads from this company. There are two things that can happen here. One, if you start getting a lot of these, and actually I guess these are the two things. So if you start getting a lot of these being tagged as I don't want to see this, or I don't want to see anything from this company, there's two things that are going to happen. One is Facebook, because they have to be tracking this data, right? They have to be tracking how many people are saying that on your ads or from your company. Because they're doing that, there is essentially this reputation score that they're building on you. And so if they find out that people basically just don't like a lot of your stuff, they're either going to, A, just not post any of your stuff and none of your ads get approved anymore, because it's just annoying people and they don't want to do that to the users. It's not worth the little bit of budget that you can send them. But what probably will happen first is your pricing will increase, and you will notice that it's a lot more expensive to advertise on Facebook for you, because people don't like your stuff. And so Facebook, if they are knowingly going to somewhat annoy people to some extent, and they know that people generally don't like what you're putting out there, they're going to just basically raise the price. And so those are two things I kind of see happening. This is more in that trend thing. They haven't said this, but that's probably what you would expect. Now, how to get around this? Obviously, you want to make your ads better, and the biggest way to do that when you're thinking about your advertising is to make it like content. So if your ads are content oriented, where they're entertaining, they're something that people want to engage with, they're something that people don't mind sharing, clicking, or liking, maybe it's relying off newsjacking stories, which is basically where you're taking something that's already a major headline somewhere and kind of drifting off of that as a news story, but it's involving yourself in the conversation. Things like that I think would work really, really well. People probably won't click on them and say, I don't want to see this, because it's somewhat entertaining and it kind of goes along the lines of native advertising, right? So it's becoming part of the conversation as opposed to standing out like a sore thumb. So that's one thing to sort of keep in mind when you've got these new ad groups coming out with Facebook and the ability to customize. Next, let's talk about some compliance issues. This is going to be a big one for those who are advertising to Canada. So Canada, in about 2 weeks, they're going to come out with what is being touted as the most tightly sort of restricted anti-spam thing ever. Like, this is just worldwide. They're going to have the toughest spam laws ever. And essentially, to really just break it down, and we've got the actual government link here for those of you who just really want to get into the details here. But really what they're saying is everyone's got a double opt-in. So in the States, at least, with CAN-SPAM compliance that we have, you go through and you can basically send people an email and then you give them the ability to opt out. You have to have that ability to, that's why you have to have unsubscribe, right? So if you're using Aweber and Fusionsoft, they all have unsubscribe. So you have to have the ability to opt out, and then you're CAN-SPAM compliant, right? It's a huge part of it. In Canada, though, you will absolutely have to double opt in. Everybody's got to have a confirmation. So instead of just naturally assuming that they're a part of it and then they get the chance to opt out, which is what we do here in the States, in Canada, in 2 weeks, you will have to make sure everybody is double opted in. So if you're already doing that with Aweber or something like that, which forces a lot of double opt-ins, then you're covered. If it's something where you're not doing that, you want to take a look at it. So just to make sure that you're spam compliant with this new Canadian regulation. And again, if you're, small-time marketers, are you going to be on the radar? This is obviously probably, they're not targeting you. They're going after, the bullies of the network that are sending millions of emails out. But, why put yourself on the radar? Want to just do it right from the beginning. So as your business grows, you've built it from the ground up, doing it the right way. So something to keep in mind. Again, double opting in. It is something that we do. We double opt in everybody, and we put them through an email confirmation process where we, because we use Infusionsoft, we just tag them. So when if somebody is new to our list in this Seriously Simple Marketing world, when they come on board, if it's a new record that's created and it has it does not have a confirmed email tag, it runs them through a confirmation sequence where they confirm their email. And then once they confirm their email by just clicking on the link, double opting in essentially, then it'll switch them from unconfirmed to confirmed. And now we've got record of when people do all of this. And automatically it just keeps everything all in one nice little place. So if anything ever did happen where somebody said, oh, you sent me spam, we would have a record where it says, well, no, we didn't. This is where you confirmed in. So that's sort of how we're adjusting this. So again, so something to keep on the radar there. And if you are in Canada and you are marketing to Canadians, you might want to dig into this just a little bit more to make sure that you are covered in all areas. And again, this is going into effect, looks like July 1st. And then you also have 3 years to get it all caught up. So you do have a while. This isn't like you have to freak out for the next 2 weeks and figure it out. Just something to be aware of and to be compliant on. Next, this is something we've got some questions on as well, but I figured we just cover it here. Google Panda 4.0, basically it is the most recent revision of the Panda algorithm that Google put out a little while back. So this is the 4th revision, hence the 4.0. And essentially, because the smoke has cleared a little bit, this actually came out about a month ago, and the smoke has cleared a little bit now. So Google doesn't necessarily say like, hey, here's what's going to happen and here's how to get around it, right? So basically, they put out the update, in this case, Panda 4.0, and then all the SEO experts go through and analyze all the sites to find out, okay, why did the sites that drop, why did they drop, and why did the sites rise that actually rose, and they try to figure out what it was. So this particular article, which again, let me give you a little show notes here, because this one is interesting. Cognitive SEO. Now this was, again, a little in-depth, but fascinating read. So when you go through and take a look at this article, he did case studies of all these different sites and did exactly that. Here are the ones that dropped, here's why, here are the ones that rose, here's why I think they rose, right? And nobody knows for sure what this is, but he made a really good case, and based on all the research that we've done on it, what it essentially looks like is happening is Panda 4.0 was targeted toward quality of content. And as it turns out, Google actually has a patent to where they have a formula to figure out what a particular page is about and how kind of like a quality score for that page for the topic that it happens to be covering. So there's actually a patent they have to figure that out. So then if that's the case, what they're basically doing is, if you have a site that is scraped content, where you've got one of those, like, like a little WordPress robot that scrapes content from other sites and posts it on your blog so it looks like you have fresh content all the time, you probably got hit by this. And the reason being because it's not good quality content from Google's perspective, because you're just showing other people's good quality content. Now, does that mean that that whole model's dead? Probably not. It just means it has to adjust a little bit. So for syndication stuff, if you're getting a syndication feed, like an RSS feed coming in and you're republishing people's things, you need to make sure that you're pointing back to the original content. That way you're not trying to take credit, and Google gives the proper SEO juice to basically the original publisher. So that's one way to do that. The other way is kind of what we're trying to do, which is in our blog, and you'll see more of that coming over the next month. We'll be releasing all these blog posts that we sort of have on standby right now. But in our blog, what we're doing is we're going through and we're trying to create really good content that is custom to very specific topics, so that each particular page, and remember, when it comes to SEO, you're ranking each particular page. So when each particular page is focused on a particular content, piece of topic information or question that we're trying to answer, and then make sure that everything is focused on that, and that's it. And that we sort of become like this little expert on this mini niche, right, or this mini topic. And that's basically the way around Panda 4.0. Now, it's not really a hack, because all we're doing is trying to provide good quality content. And if we provide good quality content, people will naturally like, engage, and share it. And if they're doing that, that's going to help us rank in terms of SEO. So the old rule really is the same, which is if you provide content that humans like and engage with and can share, you're going to be fine from an SEO perspective. So ultimately, that your audience determines whether or not you're going to be good at SEO. If they're not engaging with it, then it doesn't really matter. But if they are engaging and sharing with it, if they find it entertaining or useful, they're going to, again, engage and share. That's going to basically give you this natural SEO ranking. So Google's looking for that. Obviously, you still want to make sure that you've got H1 tags kind of centered on a keyword phrase, still have those keywords, once or twice in the body, that sort of thing. Like, you still want to do the basics of SEO, but you don't have to worry about tricking anything anymore. And that's what it used to be. SEO used to be about the latest link farm tactic, or tricking it with both, again, the content scrapers and all that sort of stuff, because Google wanted recency and they wanted fresh content. So let's create these little scraper bots that go out and pull other people's content, put it on my blog, and make it look like I'm publishing all the time. Anything that's a trick like that, even if somebody figured out something new in 2 months, it's like the latest new trick, just stay away from it, because Google knows about it as soon as they put it out, and they try to fight it right after that, and they will win. And they will always win. So if you just focus on providing good quality content, and it's focused, okay, that's another thing that we learned with Panda 4.0 here, make it focused content. So if you are a site who's trying to be all things to all people, you're not going to do as well as if you're a site who's focused on a specific topic. So if you're, for example, making a site about bicycling, right, versus making a particular site that's about mountain bikes, or mountain bikes, bicycling, or fitness, using bikes for fitness versus bikes for sport, things along those lines. So the more targeted you are, the better it's going to be, at least when it comes to Panda 4.0. Next, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Now we're running just a little bit short on time, because we try to keep these bits to about 20 minutes. But the first little blog post that we brought up by Seth Godin here, this little part I thought was really interesting. So this was he does a lot of short little blog posts, and he's kind of a thought leader, wrote a bunch of marketing books, which you probably have heard of. But he mentioned in this blog post, he said, hey, listen, let's just ask a question. Are we solving a problem or creating a problem? Right? Creating a problem is what he says we should be doing. Going through and creating a problem. And this got me to thinking a little bit, and that's why I wanted to bring it up on the webinar, because as marketers, we're often told, especially if we're going to create a product, we're told in our online businesses, go out, interview your audience, find out what problems they have, and then solve those problems, right? So create a product to solve the need that they're telling you that they have. And it does work, obviously, but what Seth's point is it works, it just doesn't work as good as creating a problem. Now, really, I don't think he's saying create a problem as much as he's saying make them aware of a problem they didn't realize they had. And so from a marketing perspective, the way this can translate again to, let's say, bicycles, just sort of pulling that out of the air. If you interviewed your audience, that you happen to build, a list around bicycling, you interviewed your audience and they said, yeah, we really want to learn more about, mountain bike trails. Okay, so then you create a product that's all about mountain bike trails, and you can make some money off that, absolutely. But in the case of actually creating the problem, or again, making them aware that they have a problem. It's more in how you ask that question. So instead of just saying like, hey, what needs do you have, and hoping that they spout out something, you can ask questions that, and this actually relates to something called spin selling, for those of you who know that book. Again, S-P-I-N, spin selling. But in spin selling, they talk about implication questions, right? So this is things like, you know, do you often find that it's difficult to find trails that you can go safely mountain bike on? You know, have you ever encountered a time where you go out to a trail that you thought was maybe an easy sort of novice trail, and that's what you were looking for, and it turns out it was super advanced and you couldn't really finish it? You know, have you ever gotten out to a mountain bike trail and not really knowing what to bring with you or to be prepared? You know, in terms of like if you have a flat tire or have a little fix kit or something like that near you. And all of those things that they weren't thinking about all of a sudden become problems they did not realize they had. And now that's where your product comes in. And you're the first one there, because as soon as they realize they have the problem, they're going to try to figure it out, right, to solve it. And if you're the one who happens to be right in line, number one, you're the one who's going to have the best shot at solving that and actually getting a little bit of money from it. So that's just one thing we thought was pretty interesting in terms of how you can direct your marketing and your message. Next, and I believe finally, this came from Visual Website Optimizer's blog, VWO, which is a great split testing software that we use. This one was a case study that they did, and it was a little bit of a surprise that they said, you know, hey, listen, we're gonna test this page, or this particular example. They tested this page, and what they tested was this link right here, that little "We respect your privacy" link. And you'll see these under some opt-in forms. In fact, almost all opt-in forms will have something like this. And what they did is they actually tested without the link, the "We respect your privacy," and with your link, "We respect your privacy." And the one without the link did a lot better in terms of conversions. Now, from a conversion standpoint, that makes sense. I would almost expect that to be the result, because there's something there's no distraction there, right? So it's just kind of like, oh, somebody they report, and it's probably not an overall concern of privacy right now, because in an opt-in form like this, people are used to seeing these all the time. So they sort of probably just blind to that, and they just assumed it was there without even realizing it. On this test, it actually dropped conversions, and this is the version that you're looking at now is the one that lost. This was the losing version. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. This was, you can see on the placement of this privacy, it was kind of out there, right? So it wasn't directly under the button, it wasn't centered under the button, it wasn't sort of made as part of the button. So it was something that the eye had to be forced to drag into. Now, obviously, the other component of this is now all of a sudden they're thinking about privacy, right? You see something that big that's kind of competing for attention because it's got that little graphic there and everything. It's competing for attention, and people are thinking all of a sudden, oh my God, privacy, that's right, I should be concerned about my privacy. And now you're totally out of, in this example, diabetes reversal secrets. You're not even thinking about that anymore because you're in this world of protecting privacy. So one thing that you should test, if you haven't already, I believe in having a symbol like this because it does make sense, and for most times the having a privacy statement or some sort of trust seal like this will help improve conversions, but you have to do it properly. So make sure in your design that it's centered close to the button, it's underneath the button, and it's just sort of like an additional aside, but it's supporting the button. This one competes with it. It directly competes with the button. It's almost the same size. It's actually offset, so you have to notice it. And that's what I think a lot of went wrong with this particular test. The other thing is the words, right? So the actual copy. So we respect your privacy. So there's other things that'll say like, we'll never spam you. You know, they've done tests like that where we'll never spam you does a whole lot worse than we respect your privacy, because all of a sudden they start thinking about spam. So test the copy into, we keep your data safe, or you can unsubscribe at any time. We'll keep your email safe. You can unsubscribe at any time. Your email is safe, something like that. You can change copy and get radically different results with these particular tests, and then actually get a bump in terms of conversion. So again, most forms will let you change that. If you're using something like Optimize Press 2.0, you've got a little section where you can change that on the forms there. So make sure that you do that. Okay, so that was our test from Visual Website Optimizer. Let me go ahead and I'm going to drop that into the show notes. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop all of the notes here so that everybody's got the links. Okay, so that's it. It brings us to the end of yet another show for digital marketing this week. Thanks for attending, and we will see you next week.